Hello. Welcome to the live show for The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. We are still waiting on Emma. She got out of work late and had to get something to eat, but she will be joining us very shortly. I am curious, anybody who is watching, if you read The Girl in the Tower in January, or if you've read it before and you're just joining out of curiosity to see what we'll be talking about, let me know in the comments if you have finished it and what you thought of it. We are going to be discussing it. It is very likely that there will be spoilers for this one just because it's a sequel and you can't really avoid spoilers in a sequel if you're talking about the book. So just know that that's a thing that's going to be probably happening. Hi, Shelby. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure really what to say until Emma gets here, other than hello, this is Maury, and this is Leo, and here are my cats coming to give me something to talk about. Hi. Hello. Um, but yes, we will be discussing this book whenever Emma gets here. So, Shelby, I know you didn't like the first one. This one is. Oh, do not get me started on Sarah J. Maas. Don't get me started. I have feelings about her today. She's on my shit list. But that's a hate review for another time. Right? It's gorgeous and has red sprayed edges and then on the inside. So I love it. And then it's signed. Apparently there was some that were signed in black, but the ones I have are signed in blue. Yep. So yeah, they're the Fairy Loot set that I loved. Yes, I know. It's not your type, but you did like Under the Whispering Door, which I'm very happy about. Not super surprised. I thought you would like that one, but I don't really know. Sir. I don't really know what about that one like was good versus some other ones that I thought you would like. So yeah, you'll have to let me Sir. You'll have to let me know what it was about it that you liked. As you can tell, I have no personal space. I'm just an obstacle on their day-to-day comings and goings. Or I'm a bed. Okay, I love you, but you gotta go. You gotta go. Sorry. Yeah, when I read Under the Whispering Door, there were bits of it that were a little bit triggering for me specifically for my specific trauma. Um, but I didn't expect it to affect everybody else the way that it affected me. So I'm glad that it wasn't too bad. Um, I don't remember what you read. What did you read before that? But yeah, I see there are 3 folks in here. Hello. Emma will be joining me soon. She had to get dinner real quick as she just got off work. So I don't want to get too much into the discussion about the girl in the tower until she's here. Okay. Sorry, Shelby, I'm trying to like parse. So you post a review of The Paper Palace on your blog. You should leave a link to your blog in the comments in case anybody is interested in checking it out. Shelby at What's My Page Again is like my best friend. So you got to make sure that you check out her content. She's doing blog posts right now. I want her to come back to BookTube. She was here for a while. We both kind of left around the same time. I've come back and she hasn't, but definitely check out her stuff. You've done the Under the Whispering Door review as well. There's Emma, maybe. She'll be here in a minute. I'm going to read your review for that one as well. Hi. I don't know who you are. Okay. I was like, I don't know if you have audio.
I do. I was gonna use my, webcam, but then it fell off my computer, and I don't feel like going and moving my desk around to find it right now, so
You're fine.
switch to the computer camera.
You're fine, you look beautiful, it's
Oh,
all good.
thanks.
How
That
was
means
work?
so It was fine. I do, like, essay review and stuff like that, and
Okay.
we had basically an entire class upload their, papers in, like, the 8th grade. They were reading, a book called Night, which is a
Mhm.
autobiography about the Holocaust, and so it was, like, a little draining to
Yeah.
spend, like, 3 hours editing these papers, but a lot of them were, like, really good, so it made me, like, feel better about humanity 'cause I'm like, "Yay, the kiddies are getting it."
There are a lot of American schools where that book is being banned and not allowed to be taught because Holocaust deniers, so I'm glad that
Lovely.
kids
I'm
are
happy
reading it
because these
still.
ones all came from American schools, so,
Really?
'cause I get to see a little flag because the company I work for is based in Montreal, but it has partnerships with high schools and elementary schools in the States and Canada.
Ah,
So we
okay,
see, like, a
good.
little flag next to the kid's name. So we know, like, for example, in Canada, we use British English, so, like, for some words, we add extra U's and stuff like that, and there's just
Yeah.
spelling differences, so, like, that we need to be able to know.
Yeah.
And then, like, for once, I had to, like, go into my little, work chat to be like, fellow" or not fellow, but, "Americans, how would I phrase this and have it be, like, appropriate?"
Right.
One student was using just the term America to discuss the United States. So I was like, "Will you get in trouble for doing that? Because I know that there are places like here where it's like America refers to the continent, not and it's slang for the country's name. So it's like, are you gonna get
Yeah.
in trouble for that?"
It
And a lot of them were like, "No, I've been penalized for that before. You need to write United States."
yeah, I think that it really depends on, like, the teacher, because 'cause I'm sure I've had teachers who would have been like, "Yeah, that's perfectly fine," but it's like, that encompasses so many different countries.
And I think it
So
matters with like I think it would matter for grade wise as well. Like
mhm.
younger grades, sure, but some like older high school students, it's like, no, you gotta be more specific and more like formal.
Right.
And I'm always just like, you can write the whole thing out and then in brackets just put US and then you can just keep writing US for the rest of the paper. You're good to go.
Hey, Thrifty. So this individual over here, the last person that commented, I don't know if you can see it or not. She has been in all of my sprints the last couple of times, and I'm so happy to see her. I love the
Hello.
support. So thank you so much for being here. Even if you can't stay, it's good to have you here. Um, so yeah, I finished The Girl in the Tower like right before the end of the month, like a day before. I think I read it in like 3 days right at the end because I had not started it yet. Is
Nice.
that similar for you?
Yeah, I started it like a couple days before the end of the month and then I actually finished it on the 1st of February. Like I read basically from page 50 to the end um, like, evening February 1st. So it was a
Yeah.
little late, but I finished it right away. Because as soon as I started, I was like, "Yep, okay, I'm in this. I need to know what happens." So I just sat there for 3 hours and read the whole damn thing. It was great.
Yeah, I forgot a lot of the stuff in it, and it took me forever to get to it because I was just, like, reading a whole bunch of crap, and I was like, "I
Mhm.
need to save it for sprints," and then, like, I kept not sprinting on the time I wanted to, so I was just like, "Okay." But yeah, there was so much that I had forgotten about, and I was right about the thing that we talked about in the first one. I was like, "He did cause that to happen."
Yep, you were
Also,
right. You were right. As
I
I
was
was
like, "I know I
reading
wasn't crazy."
you weren't crazy. It was in there in the back of your mind for a
Yeah.
reason, and you were 100% correct. I'm so obsessed with this. Like, I every time now that I can say that I've reread both of them, both times I read The Bear and the Nightingale and thought, "This can't get any better," and then I read Girl in the Tower, and I'm like, I stand corrected, but they're both, like, 5 out of 5, but, like, this was so great.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm the type of person that really likes things like political intrigue and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and I really like the historical context and everything, and, like, having that be just ramped up to 100 in this one
Mhm.
makes me so curious about the last one because neither of us have read it, so we're both
Right.
going in blind.
That's gonna be a wild ride, I'm sure. My husband actually finished it. We had the audiobook that I checked out at the end of January, and he was running out of time, so he, like, quickly listened to it, and he said for him, he wanted a little more like, I think, closure on some things. I don't
Okay.
necessarily need closure. I can have kind of an ambiguous ending and be satisfied. So I'm kind of
Mhm.
curious to see if my opinion on the end of like the total series is the same as him.
Mhm.
I did mention to anybody who watches at the beginning, I don't know, how many people will come, but I did mention that there's no way to talk about this book without spoiling it
Or
because
spoiler
it's
for
the
the
second
Nightingale
one.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
anybody who doesn't want to be spoiled probably should not listen since you can't really
Maybe
do
we
a lot
should
of
make a little banner that says, like,
prepare to be spoiled.
non-spoiler, and then we'll change it to spoilers once we start getting into it.
Yeah. Cats, quit. Sorry, you're gonna hear my cats yelling at each other as they do.
You're good.
Mm. Will
There's
you
some
update and say that we're live on something?
I literally just did that.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I
I was
realized
just
I
about to
didn't.
say, I just remembered I have to tweet that we're um,
Uh,
yeah, so cute.
I'm just gonna say, proceed with caution. You may get spoiled because I'm not good at switching back and forth.
No worries. Um,
Save. Okay. So when I read this book the first time, I don't know if you had this experience the first time, but I did feel then that the pace of this one was slow. I didn't feel that this time around. I don't know if you had a similar experience the first time, but I definitely did not this time.
both with Bear and the Nightingale and this one, the first time I read it on ebook, and I think for me, when I'm reading on ebook, the pace feels a lot faster. I don't know if it's because I'm turning pages quicker, and I don't know if that has anything to do with format, but
I could.
and like this time was my very first time ever actually reading a physical copy of this series because I didn't have my physical copy of Bear and the Nightingale
Mhm.
in December. So um, it was. I was worried I was gonna have it be a bit slower because I was reading the physical copy. But I didn't find it at all. I think it like again I read it basically in one sitting. I just flew through
Mhm.
it, and like I even found when I started it and only read the first 50 pages, it took me like 25 minutes to read the first 50 pages. And I was like, okay, never mind, we're good. Like,
Right.
the fear is over. I stand corrected.
Yeah, I had similar feelings about it. I was like, "Why did I think this was slow before?" Because
I
it's
think
not.
the first one, there's a little bit of a lull halfway through. And
Mhm.
because I think the way it works, like, because the first one, you're skipping her age so much,
Yes.
that can slow it down. And this one is very continuous.
Mhm.
I thought that the first bit was going to be um, slow, waiting for the perspective to change. Um, because I forgot how much of the first bit of the book is following. I don't think this is a spoiler. It's following Olya and Sasha.
Mhm.
Like it's in Moscow, the first 50 pages or so. I forgot
Mm.
entirely how long that section was.
Yeah.
I was sitting there every time I turned the page and there was another chapter. I'm like, oh shit, we're still not in Bastia yet.
Yeah.
um, but I didn't mind it. But I don't. I think it helped with the pacing, especially once you got to Bastia's point and you were like catching up to where you were.
Yeah.
Switched perspectives. And then after that, it's just like straight shot through the rest of the story.
Yeah, because it's that, like, I agree with you. The first book, going up through her ages, like, it chops it up a little bit, and you have to, like, reorient yourself to the story with what her current age is, whatever point you're in, and then this one, it's just, like, over a couple of weeks. I mean, it's not really that long of a span of time, from the end of the first book to where we are. I feel like it immediately starts over. Because 'Cause doesn't it start, like, with her in, like, the prologue walking into Morozko's house or something, like
Yes, it does. And I think there's actually a couple weeks, I think, that span her entering his house and getting to the monastery. Because
Mhm,
the timeline is really weird. Because even like at some point she's like nearly freezing to death, and that takes a place of like at least 3 days. And then
mhm,
like at one point, Morozko and the white mare are there with her for like a week because he's teaching her how to use a sword, and it's like uh the timing is very ambiguous, but I think it's a couple weeks before she actually reunites with everybody.
mhm.
and then the rest of it takes place in a few days or a week,
Yeah.
max a week, but definitely like just a few days. And however long it took them to get from the monastery back to Moscow. I don't know how long the travel time is, but
Yeah.
it was very
I
sweet.
It was. It was just I liked the pacing of it, and I loved the mistaken identity, or like I don't know if that's what you would call it, if that's the trope, but like pretending to be a boy.
I call it the Mulan trope.
That makes sense.
That's how I describe it to everybody. Anytime that happens, I'm just like, she pulls a Mulan,
Yeah, that's true.
and it's either successful or not.
Oh, and it's just that moment. This
Mhm.
is spoiler.
Oh,
When she's revealed, I'm just like, fuck. I was so angry at
I
him.
also forgot that happened, and, like,
Yeah.
I knew something happened at the end of the horse race, and I was just like, "What was it?" Like, something big is about to happen, and then it happened, and I actually, like, almost threw my book. I was like, "Oh, shit." Even
Mhm.
Tyler was sitting like, across the room. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I forgot, and now I'm upset."
Yes, I was so mad. I was like, because I knew at some point it had to happen, but I couldn't remember the
I couldn't remember how,
details surrounding it.
and I couldn't remember who did it or what the circumstances were, so, like, when Buddy comes in, I forget his name, um, when he shows up, I'm just like, "You're fishy, Kazian." I'm like, "You're fishy.
Mhm.
I know you're fishy. I don't remember why you're fishy, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you sneaky."
Yeah, I had feelings. I was like, "I don't remember," like, 'cause he's likable
Yeah,
and
unlike someone we know.
right. And my husband, he was like, "Why is Constantine in this book?" I'm like, "Because you cannot get rid of him. He is just a thorn in your side forever.
Literally, he's
Hopefully,
like a
he's dead
mosquito.
or something in the next one."
Yep, he's like a mosquito, but I do enjoy the fall of Constantine in this one because he is
Mhm.
just absolutely pathetic in this entire book,
He
and it
is.
makes my heart happy.
Yes, he is, and he
He's so
never
easily manipulated, and it's just like,
Mhm.
do you not learn from anything that happens to you? Like, have you learned
Mhm.
nothing from this experience? Like, take your chill, you literally got exactly what you wanted. You are back in Moscow
Right, right.
with your icons, having a good old time. Just chill. Like, you got what you wanted.
He is so I don't know how to describe or articulate his feelings for Vasya because he's clearly, like, obsessive,
Huh?
and I think that he's very much, like, physically attracted to her, and but he doesn't wanna be, and so it's just this, like, inner demon situation, and it's all her fault just for
I know,
fucking
of course,
existing, and I'm like, "Maybe maybe you shouldn't have chosen this path if you're gonna be attracted to women ever." Like,
or, like, maybe acknowledge that you're going through something and speak to somebody about it, like,
she's
or
not a witch
do
just because you think she's hot.
self-reflection and maybe rework your values a little bit, but God forbid, he's just supposed to be perfect, so, like, pretend it doesn't happen. I liked the fact that he finally admitted that he was, like, near the end when he, like, again, spoiler, when, he had what's her name? Masha? Masya? Masya? The
Ma
little niece, when
Yeah,
he had stolen the niece and took her to, Cassian, and Bastia's just like, "The fuck are you doing?" And he's just like, "He told me I could have you." I'm like, "You finally fucking admitted it."
right.
Like, and she's just like, "What?
Like, uh,
What's
and
wrong with you?"
it's so frustrating that it is him both times that delivers someone to the bad guy to get to her.
Mhm, mhm, 'cause he's,
Do
again,
you
just
not
absolutely
learn?
pathetic, and, like, I'm happy that he didn't have any freaking confidence through this entire thing, like, he was just absolutely knocked down, and it made me so happy.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what that says about me, but, I was feeling it, and, like, I also loved getting so much of Sasha's perspective.
Yes, I love Sasha.
I love Sasha, like, he's a bit of a dunce at some points, cause like,
Mhm.
dude, like, you know better, like, you know your sister, you know she's like, this is very her.
You're right, she's not gonna go to a convent, she won't go
No,
quietly. She'll
let
fight
her
her way
marry
out of
someone.
Moscow before she goes to a convent.
And, like, I liked his conversation with him and Sergey, his
Mhm.
mentor, 'Cause
Mhm.
even he was just like, "Does that sound realistic from what you've told me about her?" And, like, he knew all the whole time that she was a girl and was just like, "Just take care of her, like, do what
Mhm.
you need to do," like, and, like, his struggle was there, but, like, also Sergei I think or Sasha I think Sasha also knows that, like, his intentions when he joined the monastery as well weren't purely, like, philosophical or, like,
Mhm.
spiritual, like, he wanted to be the warrior that he is, like, he likes the reputation that he has. He still
Mhm.
has that exciting life, that's why he stayed.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, I think that was a bit of a he had to do some his own self-reflection there.
Yeah, and it's just like you want an exciting life and you understand that your sister does too and that but you still just have this diluted idea that she's gonna start acting like a lady now when she's an adult, never has acted like a traditional lady up to this point, like, boy.
Like, do you really think you leaving at 15 and not coming back had a good impression on her or, like, a good reaction with her?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
honestly. Also, like, I was waiting for one of them to just, like, write back home and ask, like, Leosha what's going on. Like, anybody wanna ask the other brother, like, that's still at home.
Right, that's the thing too, like, because the little sister and the brother, right? Those are the 2 and the
Mhm.
isn't there 2 brothers that are there?
There's the oldest brother, he's settled down there, and then, the little brother
Olga or something?
and the stepsister or the half sister, Irina. So there's 3 siblings still in, the village that they're from.
I wonder if we'll see them in the next book. I would like to
I
know.
wonder, cause like, the oldest son has gotta be the one who's in charge now, right?
You would think. I
I
mean, if his father
imagine.
was the leader, I would assume it would pass to the next,
Yeah,
the
and, like,
oldest male heir.
the bit with Olya, like, actually made me cry, like, at the end
Which
when she's
part? There were
having her
several that were bad.
I know. Like, the bit with Olya and Morozkov and Vasya where she's just like
Oh,
or
yeah.
he's just standing there like, "One of them's gotta die," like and also, like, I liked the fact that she didn't kinda get, like, off the hook at the end, like, cause you understand her decision, but also that was not her decision to make,
Yeah.
but you understand why she did it, so you're, like, so torn,
Yeah.
and, like, I like how even at the end, Morozkov says it to her, it's like, "That wasn't your decision." Like,
Right.
he's not, like, or, like, what's the word?
Trying to make her feel better or whatever, like, being sympathetic, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's like, "No, no, no, she had a right to kick you out there for a moment, at least for a
Yep.
little bit, cause
Yep. Because I mean, having I'm of 2 minds of it, the whole situation, having been in a position where I have lost a
Mhm.
child.
Yep.
My first child, 100% take me, not them.
Mhm.
But she has other kids, and so, like, logic tells me you need to be here for your other kids, even though, like, that would be really horrible to deal with because been there, done that, but, like, you have other children that you should be here for.
Right?
And are you gonna do the same you saw what happened to your siblings after your mother died, you know? You know what happened to your sister.
Yeah,
Why would you do that to the rest of your kids? Like, that was kinda my thing about it, but also, like, I can understand too, like, you would do anything for your children, so
right?
it
It's like,
was
that's gotta be a it's gotta be a hard battle, but also not like, not hard at the same time. Because it's like,
mhm,
1, you're hurting your other children, but at the same time, it's like, what gives those other children the right to be protected above this child? Like,
right.
you know what I mean? It's like, which children do you go with? It's all or nothing here in
It's
her
a damned
mind.
if you do, damned if you don't kinda
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely it is, like, and but, like, I enjoyed the fact that she didn't get fully forgiven by the end of it, but that
Mhm.
Olya still listened to her, and, like,
Yeah,
that they all still, like, acknowledged the fact that she just saved everybody and was like, "Okay, tell me what the fuck is going on.
yeah, yeah.
Like, just once and for all, tell me what's happening."
And it's just so funny, like, how when I mean, I guess it makes sense because they don't see the world the way she does, but just the disbelief, even though she has evidence, and, like, she's like, "The frost god made me this knife," and she said, "Get that sinful thing or whatever out of my face," and it's just like, I don't know, it's just funny to me to see the juxtaposition of, like, the Christian type
Mhm.
faith with the old ways, and they're just right here next to each other, but you're trying to ignore the fact that the old ways even exist anymore.
And
I don't know.
also, like, Olya and Sasha haven't seen Vasya since she was, like, small, so, like, they didn't get the whole when she was old enough to start articulating that she knew what these creatures were that she used to see, they used to just kind of brush her off as being a small child pretending.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
didn't grow they didn't watch her grow up and see this continue, right? So they just went immediately to their very Christian rest of their lives.
Mhm.
So, like, having to confront the fact that Vasya is saying it, she's also like and, like, first of all, they're just like, "'Kay, but it's her, like, how much are we believing? This has always been the way she is." And then having her daughter confirm it, and
Mhm.
it's like, "Well, fuck." Like,
Right.
I can't deny it anymore, but also she wants to do what she can to protect her daughter.
Well, and I have a question, and it probably is not one that can be answered. This is kind of different than what we were talking about just now, but
Yeah,
The Girl in the Tower is the title of this book. Which girl are we talking about?
I think
Because
it's
we
the
have
grandmother, the ghost, the
that's what I thought
she's
too.
connected with Cassian as well, and she was kind of the reason he was still around
Mhm.
because of their connection, and I think that's what I thought because I had the same question and it made me think about it because it's like there's 3. There's
It
like
could have been, any of them. They're all integral parts of the story. At least the
they're all
um,
related.
yeah, the daughter and the grandmother are the most important. Olya's important, but not as much
No,
to the
but also,
plot.
like, it's very much like a representation of what like, Vasya getting her expectations, like, dropped as well because like, she was waiting for Olya to bring her with her, like, to come back for her over the how many years that they've been gone,
Mhm.
and it never happened, and so when she gets there and realizes that what she would have been subjected to,
Yeah.
because if she had gone with her, she never would have been able to leave that tower.
Yep.
And, like, thinking about it and, like, that heartbreak I think that she had both for, like, what she could have happened to her and then also for what happened to her sister, and then now her niece, she's just like, "Are you kidding me? This is what I thought was gonna be great."
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that, like, blew my mind. Also, like, I forgot as well too, even though it's the freaking title, I forgot that when she takes her niece out on the horse into the town, I was wondering why they were all so upset. I totally forgot that the niece was not allowed to leave the house. Like, "Alright, that's it."
Well, and that again, I don't know history all that well, and it just seems so silly to me for like, she's a little girl. Like, it'd be one thing if she were like a had her period teenager and
Mhm.
eligible to be married, and you're taking her out and parading her around the town when she's supposed to be veiled somewhere where nobody can see her, but there's the reaction to it. I But again, historically accurate, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and then also, like, you think about even medieval, like, Britain,
Mhm.
the girls are always very like, noble girls are always very tucked away.
Mm.
It's not so strict, I don't think, that they can't leave, like, the palace or whatever they're staying, but they don't have very much freedom to do anything, like,
Mhm.
um and it's just I think it's also just a matter of upholding old traditions and also, like, it's kind of it's I don't know if it's, like, merging, because like, it gives me, like, harem vibes.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But I don't know what the cultural context is.
All the women are gathered together in one place and
Mhm.
yeah.
Like and again, like, any age, but, um, yeah, also, all the, discussion of slavery really irked me because I forgot that that was a part
Mhm.
but again, like, historical fiction, it's like, okay, yeah, that's accurate, but that's unfortunate
Mhm.
because that's never really challenged, nobody really even Vasya doesn't really say, like, "This kinda sucks," but
She was trying to think if she ever did. I mean, she only thing that she really talked about was being well, trying to think of how I wanna articulate this. The only things that it seemed like she was really super against was, like, the girls being taken
mhm,
and how terrible that was, but the slave talk that she didn't really touch on it, but it's like, would she have?
mhm.
You
I know,
know?
right? Like
So
I feel like out of everybody, she'd be the most likely, but
yeah.
also it's not something she's in her context as well. It's not something she's ever dealt with because it's not like Peter had any. Like,
No, they
and
didn't do
like
that
her
up
town
there.
was too small for it, and she never left the damn town. So like, there's that. But yeah, that was like one bit. The only bit that was just like, damn, that sucks. Like, and
Mhm.
yeah, I think also like she was so against the girls being stuck in that tower, but then also like I feel like her desires were so out there, but they weren't selfish in a way. Like it's not like she only thought about it for herself. Like she is thinking about the roles that women are forced to take in relation to the rest of her family as well, and like all the other girls that she sees. And like I think it's the first time that she's confronted with the fact that the future that she's running away from is the one that her niece is also like steadfast heading towards.
Yeah.
And it kind of like freaks her out. She's like, damn it. Because I
Mhm.
think this is the first time she's seen, because like Irina kind of, but she's similar in age to Irina, I think, compared to the niece. So like the niece was like a real big age difference, and like this is the next generation, and things are continuing the way that they're going.
Yeah.
And she's like, "That's not good. I don't like that. I'm gonna give my niece something fun to do and like let her have a childhood."
Yeah. Because I feel like just due to the fact that she lived in that village where she lived, they didn't have the church or whatever looking down on them, so they were able to do more free sorts of things, and
Mhm.
it also helped that I think she reminded her father so much of her mother that he didn't wanna stifle her. If she'd been more like Olga, I don't know that he would've allowed as much behavior that he did from her.
I think I don't know about the whole. I know that he was. I think he was more mixed on his feelings about how similar she was to her mother. Because he seemed in Burn the Nightingale, he seemed simultaneously like terrified for her, and also like he knew the rumors about his wife and like how his wife was a witch and all that kind of stuff. And like she, like as
Mhm.
she was dying, said to protect Vasya. And I think that also scared him. Like I don't think it was purely like pride and like she's great, she's just like her mom. This is exactly what I wanted. This is the
Right.
exact opposite of what he wanted.
Yeah.
And
But
I
he
think he
also
opted to kind of leave it on the nurse and be like, and like hope for the best. Like
yeah.
hope that it changes.
Which I think there were multiple mentions of, like, imagining her in a cage and how uncomfortable
Yeah.
that made him,
Yeah.
because of how I think that there was some whether it was pride or not, there was some love for that part of her that didn't wanna
Oh
be
yeah.
tamed. So
I think it was just I just don't think it's all or nothing. I think it
mhm,
was he would had very mixed feelings on his daughter.
for
Um,
sure. He
Especially
loved
compared to the
her.
rest of his kids. Oh, he loved her to death, obviously. Like, and that moment too where Morozov kind of tells her that like he went to Peter and told him like this is what's going on.
Mhm.
If you die, it'll fix it.
Yeah.
It's just, but also gave him the choice. So like it's not like he made him do it. His dad he chose his
Mhm.
he chose to protect his children.
Yeah.
Um and like yeah, I don't know. Peter was such an interesting character. I miss him.
I know.
I'm interested in the next one to see if the older brother is gonna get a bit of a spotlight, as like that new person in charge. And I'm interested to see how the relationship with Dimitri and Sasha is gonna.
Be affected by
Yeah,
everything.
he obviously forgave him at the end, and they're on speaking terms.
Right.
But I wonder after the aftermath of what happened, because like reading the back of the book, it's talking about how she has to flee again because
Right.
people again think she's a witch.
She can't catch a break.
She can't catch a break. She never gets to chill out. God forbid.
Yeah.
It's just like, nope, nope. You thought you could relax for a minute? God, no.
I really feel like we're still not gonna be done with Constantine.
Oh, God, no. Nope.
I just
He's
do
gonna
not
be
wanna
like
see
that
his
little
dumb
mosquito
face.
that doesn't die.
Yeah. Not ready for that.
I'm hoping somebody mentions, like, because the only person right now that knows what Constantine did in this one is Vasya. Nobody else knows.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping she mentions it. to somebody.
I would hope so. I'm surprised it didn't get mentioned. Like, why did
I mean, she
we
went
not
over the
see it?
story, so I think it's implied that it was mentioned, but they never outright wrote it in because, like, she just told the story of what happened from the beginning of The Bear and the Nightingale to the moment that they were sitting there in that tower.
True.
So, I mean, even the niece is just like, "Yeah, the evil priest took me away."
True,
Um,
they would have had to have been told. I just wonder if there'll be anything on page about what happens after that.
I hope so. But also, like, the guy who's in charge of the church right now, like, what's his name? Andre
Oh,
or something like that?
Alex? No, on Andre.
He doesn't seem very great, so I don't imagine Constantine's gonna get many
No.
reprimands, because he seems pretty not so great.
Mm-mm.
Um, and then there's that one little extra priest, what's his name? I forget his name, the one who starts with an R, the guy who went all the way back to
Rodion or
Yeah, I
something?
like him.
Mhm.
He's a good fella.
Yeah.
The Forged soul has been wandering back and forth across Russia the entire
I
time,
know.
all by himself, and he's a monk too, so he can't even buy anything. He's just been, like, begging his way across Russia, hoping he doesn't die in the snow to help
Right.
his friend. And I'm like, "You go, dude."
He's
That's my
dedicated, if
hero.
nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I am 99% sure. This is my prediction
Yep.
for Winter of the Witch. I'm 99% sure that Solovey is gonna die
Oh, I hope
because it says that you'll weep for a nightingale.
I don't know, but he's like magic.
I know, but I just like I just I don't put it past her.
No, I don't either.
And I'm wondering what was the other thing?
Somebody's gotta die because nobody died at the end of this one.
Yeah. So I think that's gonna happen. I also am very interested to see how the Firebird plays a role, since she released it. Because it seems like it's a creature of destruction. Is she somehow gonna be able to, like, take control of it? Like
I mean, I'm wondering how it's gonna come back into play because it's just gone, like, at this point. It's just flown away. And according to Solovna, she's the best of them and also, like, the one that they all come from.
Mhm.
So it's like, I can't imagine she'd stick around for any other reason than one that becomes present in the next book, like, if something happens and she has to kinda, like, show up. But also, she's not meant to be ridden, she's not meant to be, like, tied down to anyone, even Morozkov, like, first of all, she's the exact opposite to him, so it's not like he's gonna
Mhm.
be able to control her.
Right.
Um, and, like, I wonder if there's gonna be a matter of, like, reciprocity coming in because Vasya did let her go,
Yeah.
and I wonder if she's gonna wanna kinda, like, repay the favor or if there's gonna become an opportunity for her to repay the favor.
That's true. Hadn't thought of it like that.
I like her though, she's so cool, little phoenix horse, like,
Yeah.
too bad she nearly burned everything down, but that's not her fault, she's made of fire.
Like, I can't help it. This is what I am. I'm fire.
Didn't do it on purpose, it's like her yelling over her, "Sorry, sorry."
Right.
She flies away. "My bad."
Oops. Um, what was it? This is fine. The dog with everything on fire. This is fine.
This is fine. We're good.
Um,
Even, like,
and
stable household spirit too was just like, "Seriously, you couldn't have done that outside?"
right.
We're getting all the horses out.
I love the Cherty. I don't know how it's pronounced because I don't listen to the audiobook, but
I think
that
that's it.
that's, like,
Close.
one of my favorite things about the book is all those little spirit guys that are in the stables or in the bathhouses or by the ovens. Like, I love the
I'm also wondering if the one from the bathhouse in town that, she was nearly caught in, or no, sorry, the one, in the house of the little girl that she rescued,
mhm,
he owes her a favor, so I'm wondering how that's gonna come into play,
yeah.
because she returned her back home, and, like, the deal was basically he would owe her a favor. Um, I don't know if it's just him or if it's any household spirit,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
but I'm interested to see how that's gonna come into play.
Well,
And
I
then I liked imagining the little old guy in the bathhouse beating the shit out of all these people who can't see him.
yes, yes, I love it.
I love it.
It's so good. It's just such it adds so much depth to the
Mm,
story to have, like, the folklore
yep,
being such a integral part of it.
yeah.
Um, I
Besides
know
one of the main characters.
Yeah.
I like the little guys and seeing how they interact, and especially, like, when she was teaching her niece about them, like, you've gotta, like, feed them, like, yes, they're real, you are seeing them,
Mhm.
make them happy and they will help you, like,
Yeah.
respect them and they will return the favor, basically, like, do what you can to keep them around.
I did like the threat of them just disappearing. I felt like that adds like, even though it isn't, like, immediate stakes to the story, the concept of all of them just disappearing because of the fact that nobody prays to them or gives them, sacrifices or whatever anymore.
Mhm,
Offerings.
and I think that kind of was reflected in when Moroskov kind of fades a little bit,
Mhm,
because like, the first one, the household spirits were all fading, and then they were all, it was, like, the question of whether they were gonna help with her and the bear,
mhm.
and, in this one, because again, he just couldn't use his words and tell her what was going
He's
on,
so ridiculous.
God
Typical
forbid,
man.
um, like, he almost, like, was left out of existence, like, he
Mhm.
almost didn't exist anymore, um, except for, like, his death counterpart, um,
Yep.
and I think that was kinda like an extension of that, but I'm excited to see where it's gonna go because at this point, like, where we are in the story at the moment, spring has come, so he's kind of like he's just chilling on the wind now, I don't think he can manifest a form anymore until the frost comes again.
Well, and I
It's kinda like
wonder. Go
how
ahead.
at the end, he was talking about how, like, uh yeah, so he says, "One cannot be alive and be immortal, but when the wind blows and storm hangs heavy upon the world, when men die, I will be there, it is enough." Um,
Well, it's to me, I feel been heavily implied that there's a chance that he could become mortal. Um,
mhm.
and I wonder if that'll happen.
I wonder what that
I
would
feel like
do to, like, the rest of the world.
I'm not sure. I imagine that like if he could, that he still won't. I
Yeah,
don't like even before my husband said there was stuff that was like left I guess, fulfilled. I didn't think that she would give us that for them to be together because, like, he
I don't
needs to
know.
do his job as Death. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my face here, but I feel like I keep going the wrong way.
There's one orientation you can pick up for us that isn't, like it's got 2 boxes next to each other instead of just the screen being split,
Oh, there we
and
go.
that shows your whole camera, there you go.
I
Um,
was like, why do I feel like my head is not doing what it's
zoomed
supposed
in
to?
on the middle of the screen. Um, there's one, what was I saying? Um, just lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Oh, yeah, tell me if you think this makes sense because 'cause I've been thinking about the same thing. I feel like them getting to be together at the end is like a YA resolution, not
Yeah,
an adult. Does that make sense? Because I can't think of any
okay.
other way to articulate it. I feel like if this was a YA series, definitely.
Right, because it's not realistic, like, it ignores all the responsibilities of him in order for and he's making a completely selfish choice. It makes sense, I think, for that to happen with teenagers,
Yeah, and, like,
you know?
I mean, Bessie is still a teenager, so, like, she's still there, but, like, I
He
feel like there's gonna be more like, less chance of a happy ever after.
Yeah, she may want him to stay, but I don't think that he will. Maybe she'll be content for it to be what it is and not be,
Yeah.
like, complete, but because she doesn't wanna be held down either.
Yep. And, like, I think that might be one of the things she has to contend with is that, like, her getting to keep him and him being mortal is the exact same fate that she's trying to run away from, kind of. It's like, that's the equivalent to him. It's
Yeah.
like yeah, and then also, like, if he's not doing it, who is going to, like, act in as death? Like, because you know at the end, like, in the next one, they're talking about, like, a familiar evil.
The
It's
bear for
gotta be the
sure.
bear.
Yeah.
And if they're brothers, like, I can't imagine one existing without the other and the world not falling apart.
Well, true, and also it seems like from the first book, if Morosco doesn't get to them and have them a peaceful death, then they're gonna be dying in fear, So it's
Yeah,
like I think there would be someone to do it, but it would be the one that has everybody afraid and, traumatized when they die.
exactly, which makes me think if it does happen, it won't be because he chose for it to happen.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like if it's gonna happen because he's, like, hurt in some way, or, like, it's something out of his control.
Yeah.
Because he does feel that responsibility, right? And, like, he
Yeah.
does as much as he is a, like, otherworldly and a demon, 'cause he's considered a frost demon, he's not
Ooh. Mm.
I don't know how to say it, he's very sympathetic towards the people that he has to take to the other side, like,
For sure.
and he's very, uh, proud of what he is,
Yeah.
and he knows the importance of what he is, and he's been around for God knows how long, so I can't imagine him being like, "Sure, let's just throw in the towel.
Right.
After all this, I'm gonna become immortal."
Yeah. I just wonder, like, it probably can't. Again, this is me thinking of, like, YA scenarios
I
of
know,
how
right?
it could have the happy ending, but I'm like, is there some way that she could then, because of her magical abilities or
Mhm.
whatever, could she then be somehow immortal later to be with him? But I don't think so, but that's just like a YA author would figure out a way for that to happen.
I feel like there's something that could happen, but I feel like there's the chance that it'll go the realm of, like, her grandmother being stuck as a
Mhm.
ghost and, like, for as long as Buddy's alive, she's stuck being a ghost.
Yeah.
Like, that's no fun.
No, that's true.
Um, yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work out, but it's gonna be interesting. I'm so excited to see how it ends.
Yeah. I have no idea, like, I'm just spitballing ideas. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
no real notion
I
of
have
what's
no
gonna
idea.
happen.
I'm
Thankful
so happy I've
honestly,
never been spoiled for this.
I was gonna say, I was like, surprisingly, I have never seen any spoilers at
Mm-mm.
all, and I hope that I don't. I've made it
As
this
much as
long.
as much as the series is, like, popular, I don't see very many people talking about it
Mm.
regularly.
Mm-mm. It's older now, and it seems like,
Mhm.
especially with, like, BookTube and Bookstagram, a lot of the stuff that people talk about is like, "Has it been released in the last 6 months to a year?" Okay, this is what we're gonna discuss mostly. We'll talk about some older gems here and there, but for the most part, it's the recent stuff that seems to get talked about or classics.
Yeah. Which is so funny because, like, book talk is the exact opposite.
Really, I'm not on there often.
I've become obsessed with it's a problem how much I'm obsessed with TikTok, but, like, I even made, like, a project in my class last year related to TikTok, or book talk specifically. I did, like, a research methods class. It was my very first research methods class in the entirety of my university career,
Mhm.
and so I came up with one where it would be, like, analyzing library accounts on book talk and how they use TikTok and social media as, like, advertising, and if
That's
it has an
cool.
effect on, like, library membership. That was fun.
That's cool because I have a couple of times been followed on my Instagram by, like, it's not libraries, but Barnes& and Noble,
Yeah.
like, individual stores that have, like, somebody who runs a social media page for them and promotes stuff.
There's
So
one library, I forget which one it is, I think it's somewhere in the States, but they do, like, um, a one-star reviews series where they read one-star reviews of popular books, and people have to guess what the book is based off of the one-star reviews,
mm,
and then they'll go and, like, show you which it is, and it's really freaking funny.
interesting.
But anyway, on Book Talk, I find it's very opposite in that, like, it's kind of there's a lot of really good stuff on there and a lot of good like, recent and, like, relevant, info, but then there's also, like, so many people just discovering books from 10, 15 years ago that used to be, like, 5, 6, 7 years ago on Book Talk were, like, the height of Book Talk. Like, I see people talking about The Selection on Book Talk,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, "The what?"
Haven't heard that in forever.
And then, like, they got Book Talk made They Both Die at the End, which is how old now? Um, Made it, like, go back onto, like, the bestseller list or something like that.
That's
I saw
crazy.
a whole article that was written about that because that book is, like, relatively old.
Is it
Um,
who does that? Patrick Ness or Neil
Adam
Shusterman
Silvera.
or Adam Silvera? Okay.
I haven't read it. I have The only person I know that has read it did not like it, and, like, I don't think it's not the genre for me, I don't think, but
No. I'm not really into, like, contemporaries. I used to be when I
yeah,
was young, but not now.
I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing. So like right there to
Mhm.
there. It's like all my contemporary YA. It's like
Yeah.
how many books are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 contemporary YA books on my entire shelf.
I'm looking on my YA shelf, and to be honest, I don't know if I have any. Because, like,
Like,
I read them, and I have been going through and getting rid of some things just because
yeah,
I'm like, "Am I feasibly gonna read this again?"
right?
And I think I got rid of all except Summer Bird Blue. I think that's the only one that I haven't read that was a contemporary, but everything else I've gotten rid of.
I have With the Fire on High and Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, which I
I
need I've listened to the audiobook too for all 3 of them, but I listened to Poet X as well, and I need to get a physical copy because Elizabeth Acevedo's writing is just stunning.
I liked, and maybe I have an unpopular opinion. I liked, her first one. What was it called again?
Poet X.
Yes. I liked that one, but I felt like there was not, while it was written in verse overall, I felt like there was not enough of her actual poetry in it. Like, I wanted to read more of the main character's poetry,
Yeah,
and I don't think it's in there. Like, she skips over those scenes where she would be like perform, is it spoken word?
spoken word or like slam poetry.
Yeah, she skips over that. Like, each time I'm like, I want to hear it, but she
That's
doesn't
why I liked the
do it.
ending though, because the last thing that she writes is her slam poetry, and, like, in the audiobook, listening to it was stunning, but then reading it again, you can read it, like, 4 different ways, and it makes sense each time in a different meaning because of the way it was written, and that just blew my mind. I was like, "That's how you can tell you were meant to write poetry because not many people would be able to do that."
And maybe I would have liked it better had I listened to it instead of
Oh, yeah.
reading it, since it was sounds like it was meant to be listened to, but I read it and I was just like, "But where is it?"
The only one I'll
I
always
don't
just
know.
try and find an audiobook for something that's written in verse, just because I feel like it's meant to be consumed that way.
Yeah.
For Elizabeth Acevedo, I listened to The Poet X and Clap When You Land, and because both of those were written in verse and they were stunning. And then I read With the Fire on High because it's prose. And that one was just like precious. It was so heartwarming compared to the other two, especially. I was like, this is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Um, and then I have You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson, and I'm about to read next week her next book, which is Rise to the Sun, and then the only other ones I have on there are like Felix Ever After and like The Perks of Being a Wallflower. That's the
Yeah.
oldest one that I have. I
Yeah.
kept that one because I annotated it for school. I read that when I was in 11th grade. It was like 3 years before it even got optioned for a movie, and I read it for class as we had to do a independent study unit on a banned or controversial book. And apparently, Perks of Being a Wallflower was banned way back in the day.
Yeah. What book wasn't at this point, it feels like.
Right? Like, and like it's hilarious because I did Perks of Being a Wallflower. My other friend was reading Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Mm.
Like,
These are very different.
yeah. And anyway, I have all my annotations from that from when I was a little itty bitty, and like I'll never get rid of it as destroyed as it is, and I probably won't ever reread it, but I like having it since it's annotated.
Yeah. It's a cool, memory thing. Core
Mhm.
memory.
Yeah, and then like I don't have any other contemporary really except for like my adult romance.
I lied. I have Looking for Alaska by John Green. I know John Green is, you know,
He
but
had
that
his
was the
time.
first. Huh?
He had his time.
He did, and that was the first one of his I ever read. I read it in a young adult lit class at school for my teaching degree, and
Nice.
I laughed out loud when I read it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was, like, my favorite book for a long time, so I keep that copy because of the memories, and I'm sure I would enjoy it now, but I get uncomfy at the whole manic pixie dream girl thing that was in every single one of his books.
Yeah.
That's all
I
the rest.
The only John Green book that I have read is The Fault in Our Stars.
The movie does that without needing to read the book, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's valid. I read that one before the movie came out. Like I read it when it first came out. I think I
Mhm.
was 18. Um,
I read it, yeah.
and I brought it because we were going on a cruise, and I brought it for the plane.
Yeah.
So I was crying on the plane because it got to me when I was 18. I was like, "Dang, that was sad."
Well,
Um,
and it's like that one feels like tragedy porn.
it does, yeah, but it does, but then also, like, I don't know, I haven't read it in so long. I was not reading critically when I was a kid, but, like, it definitely, like, it gave me it was supposed to be very much like a la Romeo and Juliet,
Yeah,
that type of tragedy, which also is, like, it's tragedy. It's hard to do tragedy
yeah,
in any way, and, like, it's hard to do tragedy and not do tragedy porn.
right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's true, that's true. We're just not, like, in the time period where tragedy is really a thing anymore. There's
Yeah,
enough tragedy in real life.
seriously.
So,
And, like, it depends on how you're gonna do it, obviously, but
yeah.
it was definitely a story of its time.
It was, and I read it, and I honestly did not like the book as much as I liked the movie. I felt like the
Mhm.
cast of the movie did really well with it. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's worth watching.
I think
Um,
I saw it when it came out. I think I went and saw it in theaters.
I had my husband watch it with me, and because he was like forever telling me he didn't want to watch it, didn't want to. I'm like, just do it. So we watched it together, and he like got weepy and said it was really good at the end. But like the book, I I have an issue with the Manic Pixie Dream Girl things with him, but I also have an issue with the fact that none of his teen characters talk like teenagers.
No, they don't.
Like,
No.
you're self-inserting so much here. Write for
Like,
adults.
yeah, and, like, in The Fault in Our Stars, I can excuse it because they're both dying. So, like,
You get maturity through that
yeah,
experience.
like, that, I mean, is kind of I can excuse it a bit in that sense because, like, those kids are not kids anymore,
Yeah.
um,
Like
which is stupid and sucks, but,
yeah.
and then I wanna read the Anthropocene Reviewed because 'cause I've heard nothing but fantastic things about that,
My
and
friend
it's
suggested that.
nonfiction, and it's, like, I don't know, I'd be really interested to read that because I love listening to both John and Hank Green talk nonfiction, like,
Mhm.
they're both such very interesting speakers and very well-spoken men
Yeah.
that, like, I'd be very interested to read what he has to say about nonfiction, and again, I've like, even from people who hate his fiction, I've heard nothing but praise for the Anthropocene Reviewed.
That is one that was recommended by a close friend of mine for my, like, 12 and 12
Oh, yeah.
list. Um, so I probably will read it because I do. I like his writing. It isn't that, like, I think he's bad or anything.
Oh,
He was my favorite. I read literally everything. Like,
yeah.
Turtles All the Way Down, I think, was, like, the last fiction
It
thing that
was,
he
yeah, I
did,
think
and I read that one. I think that I don't know if he has OCD because that's about OCD,
yeah, it
right?
is.
I think it was kind of like experiences that, so it was like a
Mhm.
character based on his experience. I don't know if he has the same, like, OCD fixation that that character did or not, um, but it was good, and if you ever read Looking for Alaska, I would still recommend it because it's hilarious,
Yeah,
but the main character's thing is, like, famous last words is,
right.
like, his the show wasn't bad either when I
No,
watched it, but again,
I
age the
imagine.
characters up because they shouldn't be in high school, they should be in college.
I feel like that's a thing too with a lot of YA too, or a big thing with, publishing in general is people are scared to have things set in university because then they don't know what genre to place it in or what audience to place it in. Because I am a big proponent that young adult and adult are not genre titles, they're audience titles.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, but I think people tend to, if they are given the choice between publishing YA and publishing adult, oftentimes, like, I know there's a big debate on, like, I saw this one girl, I may have to send it to you later. There's a TikTok that I watched about this girl who was, talking about why the new term "new adult" shouldn't be a thing. And they were talking about, like, specifically the biggest reasoning is that, like, the idea for new adult is very like, it's actually rooted in a lot of sexism because typically new adult is basically what people mean when they say new adult is they mean, um, like, a young adult story, but
With
with characters that are older and there's sex in it.
yeah.
So basically like fantasy romance. People are often categorizing into this new idea of new adult.
Mhm.
But it's like, what's the difference between a fantasy romance and an adult fantasy? And the biggest difference is a female protagonist. So it's like,
Right.
if you're putting it into a new category that's new adult, you're just infantilizing the story because it's like it's not adult enough to be adult because it's a female main character and romance is plotline.
That's a good point. Hadn't
Right?
really
And I
thought
was
of
like,
it
I
like
never
that.
thought of it like that before. And I'm like,
Mhm.
dang, that makes me think.
Yeah.
But I think it's a similar concept because often people will come with a great story. Like, it makes me think of, like, John Green, like, a lot of his stories would have been perfectly set in university,
Yeah.
but, like, because he was publishing YA stories, because, like, the themes were very YA, they made them age them down.
Well, and it's like it's totally correct. I can't think of a single new adult story that doesn't have the things you just said. Like, I
Mhm.
can't think of any new adult story that has a male protagonist. If it were just new adult for, like, referencing college age,
Yeah,
but it's not.
yep. And often the stories are also written by women very
Yeah.
often as well. It's like and, like, a lot of these themes and stuff like that are things that resonate with women and female authors, and it's just, like, it's just reiterating the fact that many people don't think that those stories are adult enough to be adult. It's like, what about it isn't adult? Like, because
Right.
even, like, if you think of, like, Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, it's about a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like but the themes are very adult,
Mhm.
so it got to be an adult.
Well, and
Yeah,
it's there he has very little romance, I think, in his
a
work.
bit, but not a lot. It's definitely not wouldn't be considered romance as a main genre of the story.
No. I don't think it's like
It's like a
I
subplot.
it is, and I don't think I read enough to really speak too much on
Yeah.
it, but I have always heard that, like, his romance is pretty vanilla, like, it isn't like
Mhm.
the real dramatic sex scenes that you see in, like,
Yeah,
Armin Trout and Moss and, like, those different
yeah,
authors that you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, he
and,
has
like,
it, but it's not that important to the
it's
story.
like it's very infantilizing to the idea of romance in general. It's like romance is not meant to be in adult books apparently unless it's contemporary, and it's like,
I mean,
I don't know.
are there no adults out here that, like, are in love with people and that's a huge part of their lives? Like,
Like, because all the big adult fantasy series that you think of, like, romance is not a part of it,
mm,
but fantasy romance is one of the largest genres in terms
mm,
of amounts of books written and sold. It's
interesting.
like the whole concept of, like, Sarah J. Maas as people keeps putting her in as new adults, like, no, 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 the stories are just adult.
Yeah, that's true.
And, like, people often are, like, trying to say that, like, it feels YA, but it's like, what about it feels young adult? Like, if it's got adult themes and it's got adult characters and it's got violence and sex and all that kind of stuff, like, what about it isn't YA? And a lot of people come to the resolution that it's the female protagonist.
Well,
And it's
I've heard that, and I've also heard the writing style is YA, and I'm just like,
like, what does that mean? Like,
yeah,
I can't answer. That's one of the things that this girl on this TikTok was asking. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean?
right.
And one of the things that she said was that one of the is like it's easy to read, but it's like, why does
Why
that
did
make it young?
right.
Just because it doesn't take you 10 years to get to an answer or have like convoluted language, why does that make it adult? And like having something not be convoluted, why is that young adult? Like it's not young in subject matter.
I'm trying to find, uh, let's see.
Like I totally agree with you. Like that whole like the process that you're going through right now is what I went through like 5 days ago when I found this TikTok.
So, I wanna say that I'm had to look it up because I knew it was something kinda silly, but the average reading prowess of an adult person, and I think it's in America, is ninth grade. So,
Yep.
tell me again about how it's too easy to read when the vast majority of people don't even read beyond a ninth or 10th grade level.
Yep.
So, I, for one, when I read, I don't want to plod through it because the writing is so difficult to understand and highfalutin and making me feel like a little plebeian. Like I want to read the story because I want to enjoy this other world that is not the one that I currently am withering away in.
For sure,
Why should I make
absolutely.
it harder on myself than it needs to be?
Absolutely. I consider it like in my opinion, I find it a downside if your story is too confusing to understand, that doesn't make it highbrow in my opinion. That makes it just badly written. Like
Yeah, I shouldn't need unless you're like Tolkien and you've created something that has all of its own phrases and stuff like
he made 2 entire new languages
at that
that are
point, yeah.
grammatically correct and you can write in those languages. Like the man was a linguist and a historian. Like
So, like, for that, I totally get it, but,
Mhm.
like, there are so many writers, it seems like, who will make these very confusing stories that you need a glossary for and not include one, and
Yeah,
you're just like, "I have no idea what this is, I just have to use my context clues, and I have no context because this is set in some made up world, so I'll
and, like,
just
it makes you
hope
think
I get
that
it."
and it makes me wonder how many of them wrote it that way thinking it had to be that way for it to be considered an adult story, and they didn't wanna be, like they didn't wanna be infantilized, they didn't want it to be a young adult category. Um,
Mhm,
like, cause like, I can't name very many young adult fantasies written by men.
mm-mm.
Like, there aren't
Like,
very many that come to mind.
I think Neil
For me, it goes, like,
Shusterman.
middle grade, skips to adult.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I'm looking on my shelves to see how many male like, Jonathan Mayberry does, like, a zombie series.
Yeah,
Who do I got? Jay Kristoff does both middle or not middle grade, but YA, sci-fi, and, um, but, like, that's pretty much it. Brandon Sanderson has his series, the
yeah, he's got
Skyward, and
that
the Neil
young adult series.
and Steelheart is another one of his young adult series, and then Neil Shusterman with the Scythe series. But other than that,
I think they tend to lean towards more sci-fi than
mhm,
fantasy.
mhm.
But, like, that's what it's just been making me that one TikTok has just been, like, racking my brain and making me think so much about it. I'm just like, "Wow."
You should totally send me the link to that. I would like to
I will.
watch
She has
those.
so many good points because she brings up a lot of points from comments in the like, she's got a little bit of a thread of videos, like 4 or 5, and each one she's responding to comments that are just like that say things like, "But this the writing style just feels younger." And so she'll go over it, be like, "Why?" And she'll show points of view of, like, this one also does that, but it's also adult. This one does the opposite, is very convoluted, but it's YA, like,
Right.
what is it? And she doesn't do it in, like, a despairingly way, like, she does it very like, she's not trying to be mean to anybody, but she's just genuinely like, "Okay, I'm taking your feedback. Let's figure this out.
Mhm.
This is what's happening."
Well, and I will
Really
say V.E. Schwab versus Victoria Schwab. When she's Victoria, she's writing middle grade.
yeah,
When she's V.E., she can get into the adult genre.
yep.
And I if you wanna talk about reads like YA, I didn't feel like her A Darker Shade of Magic read any different from what was anything else really that she's wrote. Like, I'm trying to think what else she has.
I've read the first 2 in, Darker Shade of Magic, they're up there. I need
Mhm,
to finish it, I have the 3rd one, I just haven't read it yet. And I've read City of Ghosts, which is for middle
mhm,
grade, and,
mhm,
like, both were great, but
mhm.
I agree, like, that didn't feel YA to me, that felt adult,
Yeah.
but she did a good job of switching with between genres.
Well, I think Gallant, the one, that's coming out, I think is YA.
It is YA, yeah.
So I'll be interested to see if there's a noticeable difference. Like, obviously
Patty
oh,
LaRue
no, she's done, Beasts of Verity or Monsters of Verity, the Savage Song, and
Oh, yeah, that's YA too. I have that on
yeah,
my shelf, I haven't read it yet. I think it's YA.
it is, it
Yeah,
is. My husband has
um,
read that one, at least the first one of that, he didn't care for it too much. Um,
I have both of them, and I have had both of them for probably 6 years now, I still haven't read them.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
never
I've
bought them because I wasn't interested.
yeah. I have, like, what's Addie LaRue considered to be? Is that adult or is it
Mhm.
YA?
It's adult.
Is it adult? Okay, I wasn't sure.
That's my understanding anyway.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, why? What's the distinction? What's the? Because it's
I
like a Faustian, like, thing. It's
Mhm.
more highbrow than just writing about the devil, even though it is about the devil, but you included the word Faust in the synopsis, so now we must put it with adults. I don't understand.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, again, like, when it comes to, like from what I know when it comes to publishing and, like, classifying and stuff like that, like, there's differing opinions on what is constitutes young adult and adult.
Mhm,
But, like, that's why I like to consider them audience-wise. Like, it's a story written for adults or written for young adults. And, like, stories about college and stuff like that can still be marketed to young adults, like,
mhm.
but it can also be marketed towards adults. So I think getting nitty-gritty into the themes is what should be the distinction, not the age of the characters.
Right, because Vasya is a child in the first book, and she's a teenager in the second book. I'm assuming she's still gonna be a teenager in the third one,
It's like
and
Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. It's an adult series, but it's following a young girl.
mhm,
Like, the main character is a child, but it's an adult series, like,
mhm,
same with the, I think, Ursula K. Le Guin's, Wizard of Earthsea is middle grade,
mhm,
but it follows a grown-up for half the story.
right.
It's like, doesn't matter, the age of the character I don't think is what matters, or at least it shouldn't matter, it's supposed to be the, relevancy of the themes.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why, like, people, like, that are adults can still read YA books, like, it's not like you're supposed to be forced into your section, but it's supposed to be, like, something that's inappropriate for teens shouldn't be in a YA book, like,
The
Game of Thrones in no way is considered young adult.
No.
Um,
I just had a thought occur to me that the only male author that is current that I can think of who writes that, like, exorbitant sex scene stuff that comes into the new adult is Jay Kristoff with his
right,
Nevernight series. Like, I literally cannot think of another male author that I've read that includes that as, like, a valid part of their story,
right.
where it's not, like, against the woman's will.
Yeah, right, like, that's a biggie too, is that, like, sex is often only ever considered to be a part of an adult book written by a man if it's violence against women. It's like,
Mhm.
"Okay, so that's okay, but consensual sex isn't? Then it's
Yeah.
romance, then you can't have that."
We can't have people loving each other out here.
"God, no, the world don't you know the world is dark and dreary? No happiness can be found."
I think it's male authors who have kind of, like, coined the whole grimdark genre. Like, I feel like that started with, like, male authors. It's just, like, it has to be depressing.
I feel like that's a thing. Uh,
I can't think of any women who write in grimdark, which that is I've not read everything there is to read, of course. I'm sure that there are, but
the only thing I think of as Ninth House is Leigh Bardugo has made it abundantly clear that Ninth House is supposed to be grimdark, which is why when people complain about it being so dark, she's just like, "That was kind of the point."
yeah, which, to be fair, that was, like, not that long ago, whereas, like, some of these other ones, like, I don't know if she was maybe one of the first. I don't know how many women write in that genre.
But, like, also, like, even just statistics-wise, like, female authors that sell well tend to be either adult romance or young adult and children's.
Mhm.
Like, I know Samantha Shannon has a really long Twitter thread talking about, like, expectations of, um, female portrayals in fantasy that I think is really great. Because she's talking about how, like, things like violence against women and, uh, sexism, misogyny, homophobia are found, like, often considered by, in my opinion, stupid people as being, like, things that are necessary in fantasy, and she's just like, "Why? It's fantasy."
Well, if you're
This
centering it based on,
this
like,
is historical
medieval
fiction
Europe.
fantasy. This is considered to be historical fiction fantasy. This can get away with it.
Right.
But straight up fantasy that's not set in the real world, but it's like people will go and be like, "Oh, but it's inspired by" it's like, "Okay, but you also added dragons." So, like,
Right. It's like well, I call it pseudo-European
yeah,
setting, and if you have that setting, even if it's not actually in Europe, then you historically accurate. This is not even, like, relevant to what we're saying right now, but you brought it up with brought up something that reminded me. I don't know if you've seen the pictures for the new Rings of Power that have been going around, and everybody's fucking reaction to the fact that there is a black elf. I'm like, grow up. You
Grow
can
up.
suspend your disbelief that there are elves, but they can't be black.
There's 2 accounts
God.
on Twitter on TikTok that, are big Lord of the Rings TikToks, accounts. Like, one of them is followed on Instagram by the Rings of Power TV show. Like, his name's Don Marshall, and his little thing that he does is he calls himself, like, "Welcome to more obscure Lord of the Rings facts," and he explains things from, like, the Silmarillion that a lot of people can't get through. He'll explain it to people in layman's terms 'cause he understands it's written not horribly, but it's very complicated and very
Mhm.
confusing. He's one of the most wholesome people I've ever met in my life, but he is, like, very an expert on Lord of the Rings, and then there's another guy, also an expert on Lord of the Rings. The 2 of them for the past 2 weeks talking about updates from Lord of the Rings. Don Marshall's TikTok got taken down for a minute because the racists came and did so many community and, like, were mass reporting his account to try and get it deleted because he said that people of color are fine to be in Lord of the Rings, calm the fuck down. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
the other guy said the same thing, and the other guy as well, is, British, but his family's from India, and so he's very much like, "Are you expecting me to believe that I am supposed to go into this series that I love so much and feel like I would not be welcome in it?" Like,
Right.
is that what you're telling me to my face, to people in his comment section who say that they can't be brown? He's just like, "Hi, do you look at my videos?" Like, you're telling me I would not belong in my own favorite series. That is a series of fictional fantasy.
Right. And
Like,
I don't know if um Tolkien like his I don't know why there were hardly any people of color in it, if he hadn't had like interactions or if it was on purpose or you wrote what you know at the time. Like I don't know, but
they've talked about it a bit, and there are a few mentions of, like, specifically, like, brown-skinned dwarves and, like,
Mhm.
the area in Lord of the Rings that the people with the elephants come from are all supposed to be brown-skinned, and, like, it's not all white people in Lord of the Rings,
Mhm.
but also a lot of his, writings he wrote it in what, the 50s or the
Mhm.
30s and 40s.
Mhm.
30s, 40s, and 50s, I think. So and, like, a lot of his writing was based on his experience in World War II.
Mhm.
So, like, it wasn't a big part of it, but it's not like it didn't exist. And
Right.
so they go and find the points to tell these people, like, "Fuck off, you're wrong."
Yeah.
It's not like it doesn't exist, but also, like, again, like, it shouldn't matter. It's an adaptation for one thing.
Right.
Adaptations are not direct recreations,
Right.
and it has nothing to do with the story.
It doesn't. And I saw somebody comment like elves are supposed to be white or supposed to be no, said elves are supposed to be beautiful. And then said that the black skinned people could be the orcs and the dwarves and the blah blah. I'm just like, you just said with your whole fucking chest that you don't think black skin or dark skin or brown skin is beautiful. You just said that online for everybody to look at.
Dear God. I've
I
seen
I
a lot of
would
people
just
saying, like, the counter argument being like, "Oh, well, then if, like, it doesn't matter to the story, then, like, why," or, like, "If we can make white characters black in adaptations, why can't a white person play Black Panther?" And it's like, the key difference is that it doesn't have anything to do with the story in
right.
Lord of the Rings. In Black Panther, it 100% does.
It's literally integral to the point. And then somebody and because I commented because I go balls to the wall with these people sometimes, and I probably shouldn't, but I
Good for
commented on
you.
something and this guy said something about Snow White and like, did I read anything other than Marx? And I was like, so Snow White is based on a German fairy tale where the majority of people there are white,
Uh-huh.
and back in like 16th century Germany. So, and I've heard that it's based on an actual person.
Yeah.
So like, what argument are you trying to make right now
It's
between
like people
like
who got angry that, uh, Chloe Chloe from Chloe and Halle is playing Ariel and she's black. And I
oh
know
yeah,
people got so mad about that, and they're just like, "Oh, but if you're, like, this far deep into the ocean, like, your skin wouldn't get changed by the sunlight and your melanin wouldn't change." And it's just like, you are talking about mermaids.
right.
Mermaids. Calm down.
It doesn't
Especially because, like,
matter.
even in the Little Mermaid TV show, there's a black mermaid, she's also deaf.
Mm,
So, like, your entire argument is invalid because 'cause they've done it already.
right. Well,
Oh,
and they don't just stay down there all the time. Like,
no,
they
obviously
lay
not.
out on a
Jesus,
rock
like,
in the
why does a
sun.
fantasy series have to obey the laws of physics and reality or the laws of
Right.
nature? It already doesn't in fantasy because you're being asked in fantasy to believe in something outside of the realm of possibility of our world. That is the definition of fantasy.
But it's not possible to imagine a mythical creature as being anything other than white.
Yeah. And, like, there's some co there in Lord of the Rings too, there is a lot of like, not controversy, but critiques about the fact that, like, the elves are considered to be very beautiful, and they're very mostly considered to be white, and, like, the orcs are very POC coded, which is
Yeah.
and, like, there's valid critiques,
For sure.
but it's not the rule of law in Lord of the Rings, like, oh, it's just crazy, especially because it's just like, what do you have to do in your day to be spending so much time and effort?
There are real problems out here. This is not one
Especially
of
when
them.
people say, like, people are like, uh, actors of color are only hired into these roles to fit certain demographic numbers, and it's just
Oh,
like,
like a diversity hire or
yeah,
whatever.
and I'm just like, "You truly believe that, don't you?" Like, you truly believe that they chose that, like, any time that a black actor or something is casted in something, they were not as good as the white people that auditioned and only got the job because of that.
It's like, do
'Cause
you
that's what
realize
you're
how
saying. You're
racist?
saying you think that they were all worse actors than the white people because it should be on merit and not race. It's like, by saying it should be on merit and not race, you are just automatically saying that you think white people are better.
Right. You're being racist when you're saying that they're being racist for not putting a white person in the role because they have to do a diversity hire, but, like, the words coming out of your mouth are the most racist, hateful bullshit, like
Like that you're telling on yourself when
yeah.
you were saying that shit, but they don't
It's
get
nice
it.
when the trash takes itself out, I
Mhm.
guess.
That's lovely when that happens. It's a beautiful thing. But yeah, like, again, like, in terms of fantasy, like, this is different because it's historical. It is set in history.
Right.
So, like, that's the big difference. It's same as, like, another series that I really love, like, it's called, have you read the Queen's Thief series by Megan Wallen Turner?
I have not.
It's the only other fantasy, like, historical fantasy that I can think of. But it does the same thing, like, it doesn't like the series is inspired by, ancient Greece and Rome.
Mm,
So it's got a lot of, like, basically the 3 big political powers in this because of where it's inspired by, are inspired by Greece, Egypt, and Rome.
mhm.
And it's like people got mad because some of the characters later on were, like, described as being brown-skinned. I'm just like, if you take the map of the fantasy world and you put it onto the map of the world they are inspired by, those people are coming from Egypt.
Right.
Like, logic.
Unfortunately, there have been far too many adaptations in Hollywood of Egyptians being white.
Oh, that's a whole other fucking story.
And it's like people assume then because Hollywood said they're white that they weren't black in history. I'm like, they live in Egypt. Like,
Yeah,
right?
that
Like,
fucking bit.
why would they be white and the people right under them are like very black?
And the problem is too, I think, as well, is because so many people have their adaptations, like, go back to, like, Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra.
Mm,
But, like, also, if you're looking historically, Cleopatra was Greek. The Ptolemaic, dynasty in Egypt was Greek, ruling
I
over
didn't
Egypt
know
at that
that.
moment because they had invaded Egypt. So, like, yeah, she's gonna be lighter than everybody else.
See, I don't have that historical knowledge, and I'm assuming that a lot of people probably don't, and so they just go off what they see, and but like, it always
But
made sense
also,
to
like,
me for them to be black.
no, and, like, it's like, again, just use your freaking brain, like, Egypt is in Africa. I hate
Mhm.
to break it to you, but they're
Right.
not white.
Yeah.
They're just not. Like, and then again, it just, like, people telling on themselves again. It goes back it's those same people that think ancient Egyptians were white are the same people that think frickin', uh, aliens built the pyramids and shit like that.
Yeah.
Because God forbid ancient, not white people build something important and skilled.
This is a whole I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
I could. This is one of my like I go off when people talk about this. Ancient Egypt was one of my like hyperfixations as a small child. It probably was my very first hyperfixation, and it still is to this day. I still like every like week or two, I go on just I spend probably 8 hours in a day watching like ancient Egypt documentaries
Mhm.
and like archaeological documentaries because I'm just like, give me all the Egypt because it's so cool.
I used to want to be an Egyptologist when I was a kid.
Same,
Loved it.
same here.
Then I
I was
realized as I
talking about
got older, I'd have to move out of the US, and I didn't wanna do that at the time. Now I kinda regret
it
that.
6 months out of the year, only during the cold months.
That's true.
They only dig from, like, October to February, because otherwise it's too damn hot.
That's true.
It's still too damn hot, but
I
otherwise
was gonna
it's
say, yeah, it's in the
excruciating.
desert, so it's hot regardless, probably.
There's a series on Stacked on Prime Video that's done through National Geographic, that's The Lost Treasures of Egypt, that it's a seasonal show, that they follow, like, multiple groups of archaeologists working in Egypt over a season. So, like,
Mhm,
the first season of the show follows a archaeological dig season following multiple different people. And then the second season is like the next year. So it
mhm,
keeps following them. They had to skip a year because of COVID, but the most recent 2021 season just got added to Netflix or to Prime Video. So I've been making my way through that because it's like my favorite right now.
mhm.
And it's so cool. I used to like I remember I was talking about this series to my mom over Christmas because I was watching it for a while. And she's
Mhm.
just like, God, you've never gotten over that, have you? I'm like, nope, and I never will. She's like, you wanted to be an archaeologist so bad. I'm like, I'm aware.
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
granddad for my 12th birthday took me to Toronto for the day. He used to drive limos in Toronto, so he knows the city like the back of his hand.
Mhm.
And so we were just wandering around, and I thought I was just wandering around with granddad for the day. He's also a photographer, so like he would make me model for him.
Yeah,
And we
love
just
that.
wander around. And then all of a sudden we turned around the corner and we were at the Art Gallery of Ontario, which is like the big art gallery in Toronto. And I we got all the way into that damn gallery, up to the lineup of the exhibition before I realized why we were there. And there was a King Tut exhibition on that he had gotten us tickets for beforehand, and that was like my birthday surprise.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Because every year when I was little, he'd buy me a new book on ancient Egypt for Christmas.
Mhm.
So like, and that same day he took me to the Royal Ontario Museum, which is the big museum in Toronto. And they've got a massive ancient Egypt exhibit. They've got a mummy, and they also have a whole like wall of a temple stuck up on the wall
Mhm.
in the museum with like booths where you can sit and listen to like an audio recording telling you like the story of the hieroglyphs as you look across the wall.
That's awesome.
And it just instilled an like absolute obsession in my mind.
Yeah. That I mean, I can imagine that it would.
And
I,
like,
went to oh god. See, you have a better memory of your childhood than I do. I most of mine has been stolen from me, but one thing that I recall seeing in a museum was those, I'm gonna say the wrong thing. The soldiers, I believe they were Chinese, like
the terracotta warriors.
yeah, the terracotta war are those Chinese? I'm gonna feel
Yep,
really bad
there.
for not okay. I think
Ancient
that I don't know when it was. I feel like I was, like, middle school or something, but it was an exhibit that we went to that had the, like, legit terracotta
Yeah,
warriors there, and it was so cool. I
that's insane.
love ancient Chinese and Japanese cultures too. I love learning about it. There I just feel like basically every other ethnic culture besides mine is so interesting. Like, I just love to learn about them, and I don't understand why people are so damn hateful.
I don't
It's
get it
all
either.
so beautiful.
One of my favorite things was in my the one of the tenured professors at my school, my university that I did my undergrad, in
Mhm.
the history department was an expert in ancient Asian history. She herself is Chinese and Korean, and she actually was a curator of the Korean exhibit at the ROM for like a decade before she started teaching. And I took my very first history class. I wanted to do a history minor. I wanted to do a double major, but they wouldn't let me at the time. English and history. Then 2 years into my degree, long story short, they started letting people do it and pissed me off because I wanted to do it.
Of course.
But anyway, I decided to get a minor, and you had to take the 2 intro courses, which was basically like an introduction to ancient history and then an introduction to modern history. So it was very much an overview course of everything, like uh, very quick run. But she taught the ancient history one, and I took every class with her for my entire undergrad. So my uh, minor is entirely ancient Asian history because I wanted to take her classes because they were so damn cool.
Mhm.
Um, like the moment that I learned that things like paper and gunpowder and compasses and ship making all originated in ancient China,
Mhm.
mind blown. Like,
Mhm. Yep.
and it just like opened up a whole new freaking world in my
Mhm.
mind. And like just the fact that nobody knew that, or like no, like so many people don't know that, and I'm just like, wow.
Well, and I used to be a big fan, like, my father and I, we would watch, like, back when the History Channel still talked history and not, like, trash TV or whatever it does now.
Ancient aliens.
Yeah, back when it was actual history stuff,
Yeah.
we watched so much of that. I
Mhm.
loved watching that stuff with him.
Yep.
I wish
Same with
that
me
it
and my
was
dad.
still good, but it's not anymore.
My dad reads a lot of historical fiction now. Um, like he'll read a lot like different variety of historical fiction. But he's definitely like where I got my love of history from to begin with,
Mhm.
because we also used to watch a lot of like documentaries and stuff.
Mhm.
And my mom was just kind of like, "Oh, that's cool." Like she was fascinated with it, but she wasn't like as into it as we were.
Yeah.
Like he always said too, like the number one place he'd ever want to visit is Egypt, and I'm like, ditto.
Mm.
That'd be
I
cool.
wanna travel and go to so many places, but money, but
My cousin in Ireland, she's my mom's cousin.
mhm.
Her honeymoon was in Egypt. I'm like, "It was where?" She was,
How?
right? I was just like, "Huh?" It was 20 years ago, that's why. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Huh? Your
Mhm.
honeymoon was in Egypt? Excuse me." And, it was in Egypt and in Marrakesh in Morocco. They spent, like, 3 weeks between the 2 of them. I'm like, "I hate you so much." And, like,
Oh, nice.
my family friend who's, from England, her grandparents, they're like, you know how, like, snowbirds in North America go to Florida for the winter?
Mhm.
They go to Egypt for the winter. They live in Egypt like, for 6 months out of the year. They live in Luxor, right up they can see the Nile from their apartment. I'm like, "What?
Cool.
What?"
Great.
Like, she was showing me so many pictures of when she went to visit her grandparents and got to go, like, to the pyramids on a day trip, and I'm like, "I hate you so much."
Oh my goodness. One day, maybe. One day we'll be able to do
One
that.
day it will happen. I will freaking get to Egypt one day. It's the last thing I do.
Well, my husband and I have been talking about whether we wanna have another child or not, and I'm like, with one, if we just one, we can afford a lot more stuff. So maybe we can go on these cool trips with just one.
That is true. That is true.
So, I don't know, we'll see, but ma'am, it is
It's late.
10,
It's
and I think we've spent the last 40 minutes not even talking about the book.
I brought it up twice.
You did, you
I kept it in my
incorporated it.
mind to try and reroute it back, and then I got distracted again. So I take full responsibility
No,
for
you
this tangent.
good. You good, but I am a sleepy bean,
Same.
so I think I may go. But thank you for doing this with me. It's
Of
good to
course,
chat
not
with
you.
you.
It was so much fun. I love
Yes,
talking about it.
yes. Um, do you want to do sprints at any point in the near future
Yes,
for the next book?
I'd love to. For, next weekend, let me see, what date is it?
It is currently the 11th.
Let me see.
I could maybe do like this Sunday, maybe do some sprints.
Yeah, I can do some for Sunday, and then next weekend is the start of my reading week, so the week from the 19th until the 27th, I'm gonna have no school.
Oh, okay.
So I will be open for more.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
if
you
we
just let
wanna
me
do
know.
more than 1 round, but this Sunday, I'm definitely down.
Okay. Do you wanna do same time around 8:30?
Yeah, works.
Okay, cool. So we'll
Yay,
make a little thumbnail and post about that, let people know that we're gonna do some sprints.
sounds good.
Alrighty. Well, I will chat with you later.
Yes, I will talk to you soon.
Okie dokie. Bye.
Bye.